You're on 94.9. It is 4:15 and it's Tuesday afternoon. That means it's time for Creation Ministries International. And we have Mark James on the line. Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Mick, and yourself?
Very good, thank you. Now, of course, Mark James is in New Zealand. How's the weather over there, Mark?
The weather's been absolutely glorious. We've had fine weather, no wind. It's been warm. It's a great place to come to, Mick.
It sounds like here. It's beautiful here at the moment, and but sadly our snowy mountains don't have much snow.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they've got on the mountains further south here either. I haven't been keeping an eye on it, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's all right. Now, Mark, Creation Ministries, you guys have a website, creation.com, that has literally thousands of pages of information. If you have a question, there's a little search box up the top there. You can just type stuff in there and it'll spit out an answer. But we're really hoping that people have questions that they can ask of you while you're on air with us, because you can answer them right now. And, this week we are going to have a bit of a chat about a little birdie called a Chatham Island Black Robin. I hope I said that right, did I, Mark?
You did say it right, yes. This is an amazing little bird. In New Zealand, we have robins. Robins are around the world, I believe. We have robins here in New Zealand. Robins are wonderful little birds. If you go for a walk in the right place in New Zealand, going through the bush, robins they're inquisitive. They're amazing things, and they'll come up and they'll be within meters of where you are. And if you stand there quietly, sometimes they'll even fly up and land on your arm or on your hand. Oh, wow. They are they just don't seem to be scared of anything, and it's a real joy when you're walking through the bush. If you find a robin, they're just amazing. But of course, because they're so fearless almost, and they'll approach anything, that means here in New Zealand, if there's predators, then they have a problem. Yep. And today, you don't get to see robins anywhere except in predator-free environments. Wow. But there's one species of robin which is quite amazing. It's called the Chatham Island Black Robin, and they're only found on the Chatham Islands. Now, do you know where the Chatham Islands are?
I have no idea.
You don't? Okay. The Chatham Islands are off the east coast of New Zealand's South Island, about 800 kilometres off the east coast. And they're part of New Zealand, east of the South Island. Okay, yep. So they're sort of on the way to South America, I suppose you'd say. Yeah. Yep. And they're amazing islands. They're windswept. They've got a very small population of people on the islands. They are part of New Zealand, but they have quite an amazing array of bird life. And one of the birds they have there is the Chatham Island Black Robin. And around the world, it's the only black robin anywhere in the world. People tend to think of robins like the robin redbreast with the red front. Yep. These are a black bird, but they are a robin.
I'm looking at a picture of one there, quite cute.
Oh, they are. They're very cute. Not very big at all. But they are actually an amazing conservation success story. Mm-hmm. Back, dear me, when was it? Back in 1990, I suppose, the population had dwindled quite significantly. They were down to, I think there was 5 birds left. Ooh. And there was just one breeding pair. And that breeding pair, they were given names. There was Old Blue and Old Yellow. I think Old Blue was the female and Old Yellow was the male.
And they were both black.
And they were both black robins, yes. There were actually five birds, but only 2 of them were a breeding pair. Yep. Now, basically, the black robin was on the verge of extinction. Yep. If one of those 2 birds had died, then that would have been it. That would have been the end of the black robin population. The remainder would have died off, and there would have been no more black robins. Wow. But there was an amazing, there was a dedicated wildlife service service team led by a guy by the name of Don Merton. Don died back in 2011. But they decided that they were going to try and save this species. And what they did is when the breeding pair laid eggs, they would take those eggs away and they would put them in the nest of another bird, the Chatham Island Tomtit. And so those eggs would be raised by the Chatham Island Tomtit, and because they'd lost their eggs, the Chatham Island Black Robins would lay another batch of eggs.
Wow.
It's called cross-fostering, and it worked. It worked. The Tomtits raised the first clutch, and Old Blue, she'd lost her eggs, but she laid a second lot, and she then raised those ones. And amazingly, numbers started to recover. This fostering program was actually working, and it was because it was working. They extended it to the subsequent breeding pairs that they got.
Yep.
And they went from 1990. By 2021, there were over 300 of these birds, and the population is still growing. And Old Blue was last seen alive in December 1983, and she'd lived to 13 years, which is almost 3 times the average lifespan for a black robin.
Wow. Almost like she knew that she had to keep on breeding.
Well, I don't know whether she knew or not, but it was quite an amazing story because scientists basically say that if a population gets below approximately 50 animals, 50 birds, then they're going to go extinct. Yep. But this population went down to just one breeding pair, and the scientists were able to rescue it. And that was a real surprise to scientists because they didn't think it was possible.
Yeah. How did they, what was killing the birds?
I think predators mainly, but also as the numbers reduced, the genetics were more inbred, I suppose. And there were those sorts of problems were starting to happen. Yep. And effectively, that's what the evolutionists believe is that, if you get below 50, the population is going to be so genetically compromised that you wouldn't be able to rescue the population.
Well, I mean, in the Bible, we know it's happened a few times with people.
Well, with people, yes, with all animals, because the Bible tells us that 2 of every kind of animal came to Noah to be kept alive on the ark.
Yeah, of course.
So there was all these, all the animals that we see around us on the world today have come from 2 of their kind on the ark. Now, yeah, that's most animals. Obviously, with birds and with the clean animals, they say there were 7 or 7 pairs. We can't be certain whether it's 7 or 7 pairs. Yep. But it was 1 pair of most animals on the ark. And an awful lot of people will scoff at the biblical account because they'll say, well, hold on a second, if you've only got 2 of a kind of animal, 1 male, 1 female, surely that's a genetic bottleneck, and you're going to have major problems because we know if you get a genetic bottleneck, then you're going to get mutations causing more problems, and the population will just have problems. So that's always thrown at us as a problem for the story of Noah's Ark.
That's kind of right, though, because, I mean, if you think about it, the Bible talks about how people lived for 900 years, and after Noah's Ark, they didn't live for as long, and it's sort of the times that the lifespans were reducing from there. So it kind of happened, didn't it?
It did, yes. And that is the explanation we would give for the fact that lifespans have reduced dramatically after the flood, because of the genetics, because after the flood, mutations would start to have more of an influence, and therefore lifespans would have reduced. And that's a very good explanation for why we see the shorter lifespans today.
Yeah.
But
Won't this be a problem with the birds in the future?
and yes, we see it all around us today. Mick, what do we see? We see extinction events happening all the time.
Yep.
And these extinction events happen because the genetics of these organisms reduces down until their genome is not able to support life. And it's part of the of what's happened since the flood. For instance, particular variation of an animal will move into an environment that they'll survive in that environment, and they survive. But certain animals survive in that environment because they have the genetics to survive in that environment. And so they will start to breed as a smaller population. They might get to be a bigger population, but they have less genetic diversity because they have only a part of the original created genome. And over time, the genome decays, and we see it all the time. Extinction is just a fact of the fallen world that we live in.
Wow. Well, there's more I'd like to ask you about that. We do have to go into a little break right now. It is 26 minutes past 4. We've got a couple of messages and Terry Ann with no body, but we'll definitely be back with Mark James in New Zealand after our break. And if you have any questions for Mark, please send them through to our text line 0401 949 949. You're on Rhema 94.9. It's 22 minutes to 5. And we're, this afternoon with Creation Ministries International talking to Mark James in New Zealand, who's been telling us all about the Chatham Island Black Robin, which almost went extinct. Just 2 breeding birds left, a boy and a girl, of course, and how they've pretty much come back from the brink, which is absolutely awesome. And I've got to say, Mark, I started with no questions and now I have so many. I mean, we talk about these birds, you know, they've gone to this point of just 2 birds left, and most scientists out there don't believe, or, didn't believe there was much chance of them ever coming back from the brink, because, once the what is it in their DNA or whatever is basically now broken down so much because there's only 2 left. These people think that thought they probably wouldn't bring them back from the brink. So how on earth can they think that in 100,000 years there's going to be, a whole lot more sort of diversification? And it seems ridiculous. They believe one thing on one side and something else on the other. Is genome in the DNA? How do they work together, or don't they? Yep. Yeah, they're 2 opposites. I don't get it.
I've actually looked at the scientific facts and I've realised that it doesn't. The facts don't support evolution. But I can't judge anybody, Mick, because I was there.
Yep. These birds now, what's stopping the predators from eating them tomorrow?
Well, in New Zealand, there's actually government policy that the whole of New Zealand should be predator-free, I think, by 2050.
Oh, wow.
So there's this move to try and eliminate the rats and the stoats and the weasels, all these animals that are a major problem for our bird life. And part of that is they create predator-free areas. So they ring them
all introduced, those predators?
They are, yes. All the mammals that are predators here in New Zealand are introduced. New Zealand originally, when man first arrived in New Zealand, the only wildlife here was bird life. There were no mammals. There were no predators, which is part of the problem here, because a lot of the bird life in New Zealand, for instance, the kiwi, doesn't fly. And it didn't need to fly because there were no predators at ground level, so they could survive easily on the ground. But of course now we've introduced predators, which means that The Kiwis now have animals that will, if given half a chance, wipe them out. So it's a human-caused problem, but we're trying to sort the problem out. And there are these predator-free areas that are fenced in, and they do everything they can to keep predators out. And in these predator-free zones, the wildlife, the native wildlife, just thrives. And there are a number of islands off Auckland here where the complete islands are now predator-free. And as a result, the bird life, even in Auckland, we are seeing so many more of the native birds here. And then I'm assuming that over time they will extend out these predator-free zones and they will connect them together. And over time, the intention is by 2050 that the whole country will be predator-free. Whether they'll achieve it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the Chatham Island Black Robins, and I've only just found this out by Googling it, Mick, that the surviving population of Chatham Island Black Robins are actually exclusively confined to 2 offshore nature reserves in the Chatham Islands. One's called Mangere Island, and the other one's called Rangatira, Southeast Island. So that's where the birds are today, and they're keeping the predators away, which just increases the chances of them surviving for longer.
Wow. Mark, you mentioned a little earlier that a lot of animals have already gone extinct because of this breakdown in their DNA, and the information within this the DNA. How can we possibly expect animals to still be around in 10,000, 50,000 years? Looking into the future, if it's constantly breaking down, everything will go extinct, won't it?
In the long term, yes. It's not a great thing to have to talk about, to be honest. I mean, even the human population, from generation to generation, the number of mutations in DNA, in human DNA, increases. There's at least from one generation to the next, there's at least 100 extra mutations in every subsequent generation, and those mutations, they're not good things. They are decaying. The genome is decaying because of these mutations. But what I like to say when I'm talking about this is, and I can say this to you too, Mick. Your parents have fewer mutations in their DNA than you have. So your parents have more information in their DNA because those mutations destroy information. So your parents have more information in their DNA than you do. They have fewer mutations. So compared to your parents, I'm afraid to tell you this, Mick, but you're a mutant.
I'm not going to admit that to my mum.
and believe me, when I say you're a mutant, think Quasimodo, not X-Men, okay? You're not getting better. And
wow.
your grandparents have fewer mutations and more information in their DNA than your parents.
Wow.
And this reduction in mutations and increase in genetic complexity stretches back into history.
Yep.
And go back the right number of generations, and there's the distinct possibility of arriving at a point where DNA carries no mutations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to ask, how would you describe DNA that carries no mutations?
Yeah, that would be Adam or Eve's DNA, wouldn't it? Perfect.
It is.
Yep.
And what we know about DNA, it confirms the biblical account of a perfect creation. I mean, the Bible tells us that at the end of the creation week, everything was very good. And in Hebrew, the word that's translated very good, it means perfect. It means an absence of evil of any kind at all. Wow. So the creation was perfect, and that includes DNA. So all DNA was perfect.
Yep.
And since that time, and the Bible actually tells us that since the fall, all creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth, right up to this present time. And in fact, in the verse before that in the Bible, we read that creation is subject to this bondage to decay. which is actually what we see happening. What scientists know about DNA actually confirms the biblical account of creation, a perfect creation, and the fall into decay.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, we've got a Bible that also tells us that one day everything will be back to perfect again on a new earth.
Yeah, it does. And we were talking about this before. We're both getting on in age, Mick, and we're starting to feel the effects of the fall more and more. Yep. I'm quite looking forward to the new body that I get in the new creation.
Oh, so am I. I can't wait. So many sports I'm going to take up. Look, we've run out of time. Mark James in New Zealand for Creation Ministries International. I've got to say thank you so much. What an interesting chat. All about a little black bird. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
I appreciate it. Good talking to you, Mick.
You're on 94.9 this afternoon. It is 10 minutes to 5.